Hello everybody, today's book review is on Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Thien, and this is a book that was nominated both for the Man Booker Prize last year and the Bailey's Prize for Women's Fiction last year, and it is a book I've been wanting to get around to for a while, but yeah, it's quite a big one, so it kept getting pushed back to the bottom of my to be read pile, but I'm so glad I finally picked it up and set the time aside to read it. Although I have to say, I didn't find it an easy read because this is one hell of an epic novel that follows 3 generations of several families in communist China from the 1940s to the end of the 20th century. And it is a lot to take in. We are constantly jumping generations and time eras, and it's hard to follow where you are for a long period of time. However, I'm really glad I stuck with it because the emotional payoff is huge. This is a very affecting book. So, where should we start? It is 1990 and we're in Canada, and we follow a young 10-year-old girl called Marie, who is the daughter of 2 Chinese parents, her mother and her father, who both fled from communist China. One day, rather unexpectedly, Marie's mother announces that they're taking in a young teenage girl called Ai-Ming, who's just fled China in the post-Tiananmen era. As the burgeoning friendship between the young Marie and the young Ai-Ming blossoms, they find out that actually they have a lot in common, because it turns out, in the hush-hush, lots of secrets, nobody's talking about it, that their 2 fathers were actually very close friends back in China. And it is that which has brought Ai-Ming into Marie's house. And so we follow Ai-Ming and Marie in the present day. And like I said, 3 generations of 3 separate families back in communist China. Back in China, we follow Sparrow, who is a composer, a violin prodigy called Zhuli, and Kai, who is a talented pianist. But what really this book focuses on is the huge seismic impact of communism in China. So we have everything from the revolution, the Great Leap Forward, through to the Cultural Revolution, the overturning of the Maoist regime, and then on through Deng Xiaoping and Tiananmen Square and on through that. Because this is a book that is incredibly evocative of all the trauma that happened in the communist period. Everything from the millions of deaths, families being wrenched apart because the party demanded that their cadres go to different hundreds of miles away in different cities across China. This is a book on the persuasiveness, the insidiousness of revolution, how it can seduce, but also how it forces so much of our private selves to be hidden and to be suppressed, and how that repression of the private self has chain events, an impact that will last for generations. Now, when you have epic novels, I always prefer, much like The Sport of Kings, as I recently reviewed by C.E. Morgan, to kind of go, this happened, and you follow the time eras in sequential order. You have a relatively contained focus of characters, and you can follow who everyone is. Well, Madeleine Thien throws that out the window, because within a couple of pages we are leaping back and forth to Canada, to Ai-Ming and Marie's friendship, back to the denunciations in the Cultural Revolution. Then which family are we following in the Cultural Revolution? Because everyone has a nickname, so it's very hard to follow who is related to who. Is that somebody's mother? Then we've got aunts and uncles, and then we've got different parts of China, and it's really hard to get an emotional foothold in this book. And if I had one criticism of that, it's that for great sways, I wasn't really sure who I was following, or rather who they were connected to in the present day. So was this Marie's family? Was this Ai-Ming's? Did it matter? And even when we went back to communist China, I was still sort of so which character is this one related to? Is this Sparrow? Is this Zhuli? Are we with Kai? Is this Kai's parents? And you spend so much time wondering who you're following that it sort of pulls you out. And I did find that frustrating. However, as the book progresses, and you begin to, as often with books as they push to their climax, you begin to sort of strip out the extraneous characters. Madeleine Thien doesn't go so much back to Canada, but she stays with following events in communist China. And the book really has a dramatic, powerful narrative drive to its finale. In it is beautifully written, both on a macro level and on a micro level. So Madeleine Thien's depictions of the denunciations, you can feel the the spit on people's face. Around the Cultural Revolution, you can smell the paint on these banners. You can, and in the Tiananmen Square, you can feel the palpable fear and likewise the palpable courage for people who took to the streets. You are really in those moments, and her writing is extraordinary. But also, like I said, on the micro level, there are scenes of real tension, and the way Madeleine Thien will sort of write about the sound of a ceiling fan whirring being the only sound you can hear in the room. And this is great writing. This is great writing. For all my challenges with who am I following, the actual scenes that Madeleine writes are beautiful, and you can see why this was nominated for 2 of the biggest prizes, because it is so good. The extended scene towards the end of Tiananmen Square is the most powerful. It is extended, it is in the moment, it is revealing, particularly in how it brings out how the old generations seize the moment offered to them by the younger generation to finally challenge a regime that has destroyed their lives and that has brought them so much misery and so much oppression, and of course that they are the generation that will always be betrayed because it is them that are massacred. I wasn't convinced whether we needed the Ai-Ming Marie present day story quite as much as all the events in China, but it certainly gives you a great sense of perspective and of how the generations that have come still bear the weight and the loss of what happened for all those years in communist China. This is an amazing book, but I urge you, like me, please stick with it. For 200, maybe 300 pages, you'll be like, I genuinely don't know who I'm following here. Please, if you have to write down a little family tree on a pad, go with it. Because once I stopped about 250 pages and I did that, and it got a lot better. And it was just, I know you shouldn't confuse a reader, and you should try and encourage a reader to enjoy reading and for it to be straightforward. If you do that, this book will really pay dividends. I found it beautiful, and I have to say I did wipe a little tear away at the end. The extended scenes on Tiananmen are extraordinary. Wonderful. Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Thien.